Brian K. Wright is the host of Success Profiles Radio, and his mission is to motivate and inspire others to discover their unique talents and follow their dreams in life. With extensive experience teaching and training in academic and corporate environments, he understands that many people live far beneath their potential. Amen. Primarily because they don't really believe they deserve success. Gosh. Speaking truth here. Through his experience and research, Brian has learned and practiced the principles he teaches in his book, Student Leadership Strategies, 21 Easy Ways to Become a Center of Influence in Your Group, and the forthcoming book, Conversations with High Achievers. Brian grew up in Iowa and graduated from Iowa State University with a degree in communication studies and holds a master's degree in adult education from the University of Nebraska in Lincoln. He discovered a passion for speaking and influencing audiences by speaking competitively in high school and in college, and by being heavily involved on campus while in school. Throughout his career, Brian has been a top performer in the areas of sales, customer service, training, and has also written resumes professionally for students, working professionals, and executives. And I am so excited to bring this guy on to the screen for all of you out there to get some massive value, a lot of massive value. Brian, are you ready to rock this?
I am ready to rock this.
He's ready to rock this, and we are now rocking this. Brian, you are live on the screen, and I just want to let you know we're a couple minutes over when we were supposed to start, so if we go over a little bit past 6 p.m. Pacific, totally okay. I just wanted to give you that heads up. If you got some great value and we're rolling and having fun, just don't worry about it, okay?
All right.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come on today and share about this information with us. So let's dive in a little bit more about your story and where you came from, how you got to where you are today, the journey, and some of the lessons you learned along the way.
Wow. So many places I could go with that. But I grew up in Iowa, and as you mentioned, I went to Iowa State University and majored in communication studies, went to graduate school at Nebraska and spent 8 years there. Did some teaching. I taught public speaking, English composition, and business math, which might seem like an odd combination of courses to teach. I was at a business college for a two-year business college.
Wow.
But the common thread was all of those courses were required. Which means that just about every student in that school, and there were probably about 400 students at that school at the height of my time there, a lot of the students ended up having to take some class from me because I was teaching the general ed classes, along with a couple of other people as well. But it was incumbent upon me to make the class fun and interesting because not a lot of people enjoy public speaking as much as I do. Not a lot of people enjoy writing as much as I do. And certainly not a lot of people enjoy math as much as I do. I was really a math nerd when I was growing up. I could multiply numbers in my head and drive people crazy. In fact, I do remember my parents taught me how to add and subtract when I was in kindergarten, and that wasn't introduced, I think, until first grade. They taught me at home how to multiply and divide, and that wasn't introduced, I believe, until third grade, and I knew how to do this already in first or second grade. So I learned that kind of thing very, very quickly, fortunately. And I decided to move to Arizona after my job at the business college ended because we had a director of admissions who decided for whatever reason, this was pre-internet now, who decided for whatever reason that Yellow Page advertising just wasn't worth it. That was, a lot of students found us because of Yellow Page ads. Our enrollment went from about 400 to about 250 in less than 8 months. He got fired.
Wow.
That so affected enrollment, which also affected the number of teachers that they could afford to carry full time. And so my job was impacted right before Christmas one year. And it was interesting. I finished my finals with my students, and my director of education came in and says, "Can I talk to you?" I'm like, "Sure." And she told me that I was getting reduced from full-time to part-time, and I kind of muttered under my breath, "Well, Merry Christmas, huh?" And she says, "It's not personal. You do a really great job." But it was based on seniority. I had been there 2.5 years at the time, and I was low on the totem pole, which tells you that people don't want to leave that position. Teaching positions in Lincoln, Nebraska were very competitive at that time, especially at the college level. But what I had done was I had started a resume writing business part-time anyway, and so that just meant that I could start doing that full-time, started ramping up my marketing for that. I actually had my resume writing service inside a Sears store, interestingly enough, that they had franchised that out. And so I wasn't at home. I wasn't asking people to come to a stranger's home. It was out in public, but yet in a discreet enough location that people wouldn't worry about whether their job search would be discovered or not. So I did that and wrote resumes for probably about 3 years or so. Enjoyed that process a lot, but I realized people kept asking me, is that lucrative? It gets me by, but then I realized lucrative was much bigger than I was playing. And I realized that what I was doing was not lucrative. I decided I don't want to just get by. And I had always dreamed of Phoenix, Arizona. And I just eventually decided to move out here. And it might have seemed very sudden to my friends, but the truth was I had been entertaining that idea for close to a year. I just didn't tell anyone because I didn't want anyone talking me out of it.
Wow.
So I have been out here in the Phoenix area for the last 21 years.
Wow.
And yeah, so it's been a very fun and interesting journey. And now I'm fast forwarding massively here, but because I know there's other things you want to ask me, but now I host a radio show called Success Profiles Radio. It's a weekly personal development show that I've had for about 5.5 years. I interview some of the most amazing achievers in the personal development and business industries. I've gotten to interview people like Darren Hardy, Jack Canfield, Laurel Langmeyer, James Malinchak, Dr. John DeMartini, Bob Doyle, Jonathan Horton, who was an Olympic silver medalist in a couple of Olympiads, Rich Franklin, who was a former UFC champion. I got to interview him. That was great. Wow. Michael Port was fantastic. Sharon Lecter, Greg Reed. Just amazing. I got to interview Kevin Harrington recently from Shark Tank. Wow. That was an amazing experience. And I got testimonials from some of these people too. Wow. So that's something, if you are running a business and you have clients who are very happy with what you've done, especially if people know who those clients are, high-level profile people, get testimonials and post them on your website and everywhere you can, even in your marketing. It's amazing what that can do. Social proof is amazing. I know that I've gotten some of my guests because of some of the testimonials that I've gotten from previous guests. And a lot of those people are friends. These people all run in the same circles. So if you can show somebody, I had this person, this person, this person on my show, and here's their testimonial talking about my experience. Jack Canfield, while he was on my show, said to me during the show, "You've interviewed a lot of my friends." And I very confidently said, "Yes, I have." It's true. I have.
Yes. Yes.
And it's nice when you can own your power like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I've done that. And I also am a published author. I've got 2 books out now, and my 3rd and 4th book are coming out in the coming months. One of them is called Conversations with High Achievers. That is with Morgan James Publishing. So that is with an actual publisher.
Wow.
I had my first mastermind call with them on Monday. Very exciting, just to have timelines laid out and just to hear them say they thought I did a really great job getting my book done and edited, and they don't have a lot of work to do in terms of the editing. All they have to do is just, lay it out and go for it. And I'll get to see the first laid out version of my book here in probably the next 3 weeks or so. I'm very excited. And they'll be doing the book covers, and we'll be talking about marketing as we go along, and just the whole process is just going to be very exciting, and I'm going to learn a lot. I'm so excited and fired up about that. But I also do ghostwrite books for people, and so I help them self-publish their books. But I want the experience of going through a publisher just so that I can say I've had the experience and I can draw out and delineate the differences between the two. And it's nice to be able to say that I have connections. So
yeah, and it sounds like the experience, one, is valuable for you, and two, I think the groups that you'll reach because you have a traditional publisher could possibly be different than the ones through maybe organic, the types of marketing that you've done before, and you just get this whole new experience. Yeah. Wow.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to making even more connections than I have now, and we can't be well connected enough.
No.
There are people that I still would love to interview and talk to, and people that I'd like to meet. And you do that by, having a show like this. I would never have an audience with someone like Darren Hardy unless I was paying him to be in a mastermind or paying him thousands of dollars to go to an event that he's hosting. And there's no guarantee even then I would get to actually talk to him. But to get to talk to him for a whole hour, hello. Great experience. He was fantastic. He was amazing. And there's a lot of credibility that goes along with saying that you have a show like this and you can impact the world and have people who want to subscribe to your show, which you can do on iTunes. So Sex Profiles Radio, just download and subscribe on iTunes if you'd like. But I hope that all of you who are watching and listening do that and get some value from the show. I've gotten great feedback about the show, and we do the show on lots of different success-related topics. The umbrella is very wide and very large, which means I can do a relationship show if I want to. I can do a health and fitness show if I want to. A lot of my shows are about building businesses, building a following, overcoming adversity. My show last week was a guy who started a book publishing company.
Wow.
So it's interesting when I talk to people on social media or otherwise, and they have a question about a certain topic, I can confidently say, I interviewed somebody who did a show about that. Look on my website and scroll down to the interview with so-and-so and listen to that show. They can answer that question so much more than I can because they're the expert and I'm not.
Wow. That's a powerful leverage tool that you have, and this credibility. It's when people ask a question, you're like, I don't need to be the answer. I don't need to be the messenger, or I don't need to be the message. I'm the messenger. I have the person who actually delivers the message, and you can connect with them and get it at an even deeper level if you really want that whole experience.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a really great thing to be able to do for sure.
That's awesome. Awesome, man. So let's start diving into this process of using our existing content to create our next book. And I know you do ghostwriting, so you can tell us how we might go about the process on our own if we wanted to lay it out, and how we would go through a ghostwriter like you, or any other distinctions that you feel we might need.
Sure, absolutely. There are reasons why someone might hire someone to write their book for them. One of those being, I don't think I'm a good writer. Another of those being, I can write, but I just don't have time or just don't want to. And another being, I've never gone through this process before. How do I even start? How do I even do it? Those are all legitimate reasons to talk to somebody about helping write your book. And it's important that you find someone that you resonate with. I have clients that I resonate with very, very well. I had one person who ended up not being a client after several conversations. We really didn't resonate at all. This person was not my ideal client. And here's the thing. As a business owner, I have to identify who my ideal client is. I have to identify who I'm willing to work with, and more importantly, who I'm not willing to work with. You cannot be so desperate for a business that you're not willing to walk away from it if it just doesn't vibe with you. Life is too. One of my great mentors, his name is James Malinchak. One of his mantras is, life is too short to work with people who irritate you. It's true.
Yes.
Life is way too short to work with people who irritate you. Door's over there. Bye. I'm just not going to do it. It's just not happening.
Yes.
So you want to talk to that writer and find and have your questions and find out if you have that vibe with them. Find out if how responsive they are. Find out what their process is like, and make sure that you feel real comfortable with that person. Now, in terms of repurposing content, I can tell you that I've got a book coming out later this summer, and I believe I'm going to call it Nuggets for Living or some variation of that. I have been doing short Facebook videos that are like 2 or 3 minutes long. I'm a great believer in doing short videos. I've got friends who do videos every day, and God bless them, love them all. But if your video is more than 5 minutes, I probably am not going to have time to watch the whole thing every time you do one.
Yep.
I just won't. And, there are people who do longer videos on a very regular basis, and that's fine. Their purposes are probably a lot different than mine. But I'm just, with the number of people whose lists I'm on and with the number of people I'm connected with, I don't have time to watch everybody's thing every day. As much as I would love to, I can't. So I have to be judicious. And so I tend to bear that in mind by making shorter videos. And I don't do them every day. My goal was to do them about 3 times a week. I've done 40 of them now. I haven't done one in probably a week now. But I have enough material now that I can repurpose the content from those 40 videos into a short book that'll probably be maybe 100 to 120 pages. boom.
Yeah.
Not everyone, because of Facebook and how their algorithms work, you don't get to see everything that all of your friends post.
Right.
And so I can be friends with 2,900 people, which I am right now, but they're not all going to have seen any of my videos. There's a lot of them who probably have never seen any of my videos. So how can I make sure that they can? Well, get them transcribed, get them laid out. I've got a graphic designer who can lay it out, who can design a book cover for me. I've got a printer that I can source locally who can print them. And it's print on demand. You don't have to order 1,000 at a time. There are printers that are called long-run printers where you have to order 500 or 1,000 at a time. The trade-off is the price per copy is going to be a lot lower. So if you know that you're going to be selling a lot of copies, in other words, if you speak to groups regularly, if you have seminars, and you know that you're going to be in front of hundreds of people at a time, you'll probably sell 500 or 1,000 copies, maybe in the span of a weekend or maybe a month or two or whatever the case is. If that is not your audience, and if that's not where your business is going, if you prefer to use them as a giveaway, for example, to clients, which some of my clients do, they use it as a credibility piece. Instead of giving a business card, they give a book, a 64-page book that I might have helped them with. You're not going to need to order 1,000 of those at a time. You might want to order, 50 or 100 or whatever. A short-run printer is a print-on-demand service, and my local printer is print on demand. I can order just one if I really, really want to. I usually order a minimum of 20 at a time,
right? Just
to justify his time, and because I know that I'm going to go through 20 copies anyway sometime.
Right.
So that's something to be aware of. But self-publishing can be really, really good. You did ask about how to. I think you asked about how to get your topic fleshed out. Am I right?
Yep.
Okay. I'll tell you what I did with my student leadership book. I sat out on the patio and I asked myself, what makes an excellent leader? And I did this without looking at any leadership books. I did look later to validate some of the things that I wrote down, but I didn't want to be tempted by what was in a John Maxwell book or anybody else by just borrowing their ideas. I wanted to come up with my own list of what makes an excellent leader. My goal was to come up with 21 of them. I came up with 30.
Wow.
As I began to write the book, and each of those ideas became its own chapter, okay, as I started writing, I realized that some of the topics were really similar and actually merged together. So I ended up with 21 by the time I was done anyway, so goal achieved. Yes, exactly. And I find that when I sit down at a computer and type, it takes longer. I tend to edit as I go. Other people will just get the dirty work done and then fix it later. I tend to write a few sentences, and if I don't like where it's going, I erase or I'll change. And it took me longer, and there were days where I wasn't inspired to write. In fact, there were weeks where I didn't write at all because I just didn't feel inspired. But what really got me going is I put an artificial deadline in place. In fact, I promised one of my friends that I would have this book done by the time that we both attended a certain conference on a certain time, on a certain weekend. And so now I was up against it. I have to get this done. And so I did. I self-edited the book. I went through the book 4 times in the same week. And you know what? I still found typos afterwards, but I didn't care. Done is better than perfect. I found a handful of typos. So no, I didn't get a professional editor. I taught English, so I figured I can edit my own book. But you know what? When you have a 96-page book, you're still going to find some mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
And so what I did not do, which I have now since started doing, is if I'm editing a book, I read it out loud. Even if I'm the only person in the room, because if you are reading out loud, you will catch where you should not, where you have punctuation where you shouldn't, and vice versa. You will catch if you say, if you're using the word the and you accidentally wrote the twice, blah, 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 the, blah, blah, blah. Wait a minute. No. Delete. Or if you're missing words like, oh, there's a word missing here, you will catch more of your own mistakes if you read it out loud. So do that. If you are editing your own, otherwise I would say have someone else read it. They may charge you for it. But if it's someone that is an expert in the English language, they've taught or they've written before or they are professional editors, it's probably going to be well worth your effort to have that done. So that would be my suggestion as far as that goes. But yeah, brainstorming your topics, asking the big question, and coming up with as many answers as you can, and then making the answers, each of those answers, a short chapter. That's a great way to organize your material. It forces you to stay on task, and it forces a structure upon you, which a book needs to be structured. And here's the thing. When I ghostwrite books for people, what I do with them is we will come up with their idea for the book. They usually know what they want their book to be about, but we come up with the chapters and the subtopics, and I will interview them on a recorded line. And some people think, oh, that's easy. You just transcribe that and voila, there's your book. Well, no, there's editing involved, believe me. Yes. Because when you are having a conversation with someone, you will frequently go back to a topic that you've already talked about. You will frequently foreshadow, hey, I want to talk about this when I get done with my current idea. Yep. And sometimes you get really repetitive by repeating the same things over and over. Have you ever been with that friend who tells you the same story 3 times in a row? We all have that person in our life, yes. Right? And so if you are doing their book, you have to edit some of that out, right? Conversations never happen in a straight line. That's really the point I want to make. But as a book writer, as a ghostwriter, it is my job to make sure the conversation appears as if the conversation happened in a straight line. Sometimes that's a challenge, especially when you're working with someone, God bless them, that has ADD. And they're just all over the place.
Wow.
But that's my challenge, and I embrace it, and I love all my clients. So there is an art to this. Yeah. It's something that some people do really well and others don't. I mean, we've all read books where the author goes on and on and on. It becomes like a Seinfeld episode. This is a whole bunch of hooey about nothing. And it's 200 pages long. It's like, why did I waste my time on this? But you know what? Some of my clients tend to think that just because their book is bigger means it's a better book. That's not always true. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is like 120 pages long. It was one of the most influential books in the last 20 years. Right. One of the most influential business books. You don't have to have a big book to provide a lot of value.
Yeah,
I like to just write it.
I would say that the biggest thing that books are being used for these days is the business card aspect, is the credibility, is, hey, I've got a book written.
Yeah. Right. And the barrier to entry is really low. Anyone can write a book. Yeah. Not everyone can write a good book. So if you want your book to be good, either be a good writer or hire somebody, and that's not a self-serving statement, but hire somebody who has been through this rodeo before and can help you navigate through that. Even if you still want to do it yourself, at least seek counsel from people who have done this before. They can give you ideas and suggestions.
So it depends on people's outcome for why they're writing a book. If it's to gain massive followers and do massive marketing campaigns and reach tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of sales, then investing the money up front for probably a longer book is going to be most likely the best option.
Yeah. And sometimes, and I don't have clients like this because this is not my ideal client, but sometimes people just want to write their memoir that, their family and friends will read, and they only plan on selling maybe 5 or 10 copies of this book ever. Wow. Because they just want to document their legacy for people. Yeah. I know people who would put together like a scrapbook or something, and the only copy they're going to make is the one copy. And so they don't need to hire a ghostwriter for that. I mean, you don't need to spend thousands of dollars putting that together. You can go on a site like lulu.com where you can upload it and they will print one copy if you want it. Now, the price per unit is going to be pretty expensive for a book, but you can order just one at a time.
Oh, beautiful. And then we have Shamika, who's making some comments. By the way, if anybody out there has questions for Brian, make sure you ask them because he's here right now live on the show. Shamika says, oh my gosh, I love this guy. I was just saying this. I think I have I think the longest Facebook Live I have done is 6 minutes. So she was talking earlier about how you keep it to 2 to 3 minutes. And then she also said the thing I learned from doing my children's book is I need to print it out versus looking at it on the screen to be able to proofread effectively.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes that's what you have to do. And sometimes you just need to get away from your screen, print it out, go to a coffee shop, go to a park, do it on an airplane or in a car, or not if you're driving, obviously, but just go somewhere neutral. Yeah. And just get a fresh start. And just look at it, and that way you can make your marks all over the place, and that way when you get back to your computer you can do that. In fact, when I just completed work with a client where every week we would work on some revisions, and we did several rounds of revisions, but she would print it out every single time. And she's local, and so we sat across from each other and I read it out loud to her, and she sat and listened to it, and she would occasionally say, change this, or can we say this, can we add this, or whatever, and I would find my own typos, and so I would fix them as we go. But yes, do that. Print it out if you can. I mean, if you've got a really long book and you really want to print it out, fine. If you want to save the trees and just edit while you're on your screen, that's fine too. That's up to you. But yes, exactly, Shamika, that is exactly a great point. Print it out. Sometimes that is the best way to get some clarity. You've got it in front of you. It feels more real if you've printed it out. But I'll tell you what, it'll feel even more real once you have it laid out into a book.
Ooh.
It will, because I'll tell you what, I delivered books to my client yesterday, and it was like she was seeing her baby for the first time. It was a really pretty emotional experience. And I remember the first time I saw my student leadership book for the first time. I was given a proof by the publisher, and they said, look this through. And I'm like, wow, this is cool. But then when my boxes of books, because I went through a long printer, I got 1,000 copies. I still have 600 of them in storage. So that's why I'm saying be really, and I do plan on selling them.
Yes.
I do plan on selling them.
Yes.
I'm not going to dump them or anything like that, because there's a lot of valuable content in there. In fact, I'll come to this story in a minute, but you definitely want to get it printed out, because once you see your book in your hands for the first time, it's a very magical experience, and it can be a very emotional experience for some. It's like, wow, I just did this. That's amazing.
Wow.
I
can only imagine. And Shamika says it's actually it actually comes out at the end of the month, so she's really excited about her book that's coming out. Great job,
Good.
Shamika, for getting it finished. And I'm
Awesome.
curious, Brian, is there a specific? I'm sure it depends on the book and the amount of revisions and all that kind of stuff, but the time period, I'm curious how long it took your client, and then how long it took you for the 21 success lessons, principles.
I'll tell you what, because I did not hold myself accountable for long periods of time, I think it took me over a year to write this 96-page book, and there's no reason why that should have happened. I was sitting at my keyboard composing. Now, with technology, you can, even if you don't have a recorder, you can hop on a site called freeconferencecall.com. And if you are the host of the call, you can have yourself, or you can have up to, I think 100 people. But if you're the host, you can enable recording, and it's free. It's free. I mean, there is a paid option, but you get a certain amount of storage for free, and I haven't even come close to exhausting that storage yet. But you can record it, and then you can download it so that you have the actual audio, the MP3 of it, and then you can get it transcribed. And then you can look at it and say, okay, I need to change this. I need to add more meat here. I need to take this out because this made absolutely no sense. Or I need to insert this section up here because I end up discussing the same topic more than once, and I just want to merge those two topics into one place.
Wow.
So once you see it in front of you, you realize exactly, what you've got going on, and you do realize that conversations don't happen in a straight line. And if you do transcribe an exact conversation the way it happened, there are times where you think, gosh, I'm just an idiot. Look at this. But no, but you know what? When we talk, it all sounds very normal and natural. But once you see it in writing, it's a completely different experience. And so you have to polish it up. So to answer your question, it took me over a year to write that book. My process now, it shouldn't take that long. In fact, my goal is to get a book done with someone in 90 to 120 days. That's 3 to 4 months. Okay. The caveat to that, though, is everyone needs to adhere to their deadlines.
Right.
And it also depends on how long your book is. If it takes me a long time to transcribe, or what I've discovered, Rev.com is a great transcription service. They're fast and they're very accurate. They charge $1 per audio minute, and you can submit a 1-minute audio and they'll charge you $1 for it, and they'll have that to you probably within like an hour.— It's amazing. In fact, with one of my clients, I we had 4 calls altogether. I've had 3 of those calls transcribed. That's almost 3 hours worth of audio. They were all less than $60 each, and they all took less than 24 hours to do. That's amazing.
How many words does that typically? I mean, it probably varies per person how fast they speak, but how much?
Oh my gosh, you know what? I don't have a word count on that, but I can tell you that when what they did is they did it interview style, and so they put tabs, and so I'm having to take all the tabs out because I'm doing this as a book. This is not supposed to look like an interview style book. Right. It's supposed to look like one voice or sound like one voice. So that's my challenge. I should have given them instructions.
But
Don't do tabs.
in a book, would you say that the questions that you might ask as an interview style would be good headings?
Yes, exactly. And I change it a little bit. So if I ask, for example, so what is your process for defining your purpose? They might type that out, but I will shorten that to defining your purpose, and that is your chapter title.
Yes.
So you want to rearrange the question so that it becomes a chapter title. So yes, you have to edit that out, because if it all looks like questions, then it looks like you interviewed someone, and it's like, well, did you really write this?
Do you think people would question that?
I don't know, but as a writer, I would.
Yeah.
But I want it to look like the person did it themselves, and my name appears nowhere on their book.
Wow.
That's what ghostwriting means. Yeah. I'm anonymous.
Wow.
Now, if in the acknowledgments they choose to credit me for helping them, which this client did, that is up to you. I do not make you do it. I don't encourage you to do it, but she did. And I'm like, oh, well, that's really sweet of you. Thank you.
Wow. So what else can people do to prepare themselves for the ghostwriting process, or to have this book, this next masterpiece, come out?
If you have content that you've already generated, whether it's videos, whether you've been published, whether someone has written about you, having some of those resources available to let your ghostwriter have access to would be very, very helpful. One of my clients has a podcast, and it's on iTunes, and it's going to be a real estate book. So I didn't do the traditional, let me interview you on a recorded call. What I am doing, and this is taking longer, I might revert back to the other method if I find this is taking way too long, but I am listening to their podcasts and taking from it what is relevant to what their book is going to be about. All the I don't want to say senseless banter, but all the banter that hosts have with one another, like on AM morning radio, it's like, okay, cut, stop, delete. I just ignore those things, and when something relevant comes up, then I will stop the recording and think of a relevant way to reposition that or reword that, or just straight transcribe it and then put transitional statements and phrases around it. Wow. So it can take a while to do this, but what I'm learning is if it is at all possible to source out the transcription, I will do that as long as the funds allow me to do that. So here's a really great lesson as a business owner. Do what is in your zone of genius and source the rest of it out if you can. Wow. You'll save so much time, because who wants to get stuck doing the things they don't want to do? That's why you're in business. If you had a job, you would expect to do some things that you don't want to do. And maybe not get paid terribly well for it. But if you have your own business, I mean, you are, especially if you're a solopreneur, your job is everything.
Yep.
Your job is to do everything. But if you have the wherewithal and the resources to hire someone else to do the things that you don't want to do or don't have time for, that's great. I mean, I can try and transcribe the call. I don't want to, especially now that I've found a resource that can do it a lot faster than I can. It takes me about 5 hours to transcribe a 1 hour audio. But then again, I'm editing as I go. I'm not just straight transcribing, especially since I did the interview. I'm familiar with some of the content and some of the nuances and the directions that the interview is going on. If I know that something else comes up later, I'll okay, delete or make a note to myself to merge topics and whatnot. But I edit as I go. And so it does take me longer than it would probably take someone else. But it's just so much easier to source that out. That way it's all right in front of you and you can just do it. You can get a book done pretty fast if you do it right, if you are really well organized, and if you've had content created already.
What do you think people's biggest reason why they don't feel like now is the right time to write a book is, and how do you handle that?
They usually don't feel ready, or they wonder if this really belongs to me. Can I really do this? Well, you can. In fact, Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, was talking to a reporter, and the reporter was giving him some grief about, some of the grammar and some of the repetitiveness in the book, because he does tend to repeat himself a lot. And his retort to the reporter was, "I'm a best-selling author, not a best-writing author." Oh, burn. Burn. And it's true. He's a best-selling author. He's not a best-writing author. Yeah. You don't have to be the best writer in the world. You don't have to be a Stephen King. He's a great writer. I went through a Stephen King phase where I would just read a bunch of his stuff. Wow. I'm reading primarily nonfiction now. But you don't have to be a great writer, especially when you can source that out. I mean, you think about Trump before he was president. You think about Hillary Clinton. You think about Bill Clinton. Do you really think they all sat at their keyboards and wrote their books? No. They don't have time. No. And I can tell you, Trump, when he was running his businesses before he became president, he would sit in the back of his limo, or whoever was driving him around. He would have his secretary with him, and he would talk out his thoughts, and his secretary would, dictate. This is pre-internet now, by the way. Dictate and then write it out, and then she would give it to him to approve, and he would suggest, change this, add this, let me add this, let's take this out. But he had total creative control over the whole process. He just didn't write his book. So he's an author, he's not a writer. Distinction right there. He's an author, he's not a writer.
Wow.
He authored the book, but he had a team help him write it.
Wow. So do you think a lot of people attempt to go at writing a book all alone, and do you think that they give up oftentimes because it becomes too difficult, or do you think they just produce works that aren't so great?
I think people tend to give up. They start, they're very well intentioned, and then things sidetrack them. Life happens, and they realize that maybe it wasn't the big priority that they thought it was. And so they give up, or they get sidetracked. I mean, we all have heard those stories about people who started their book and they never finished it. Well, why didn't you finish it? Well, this, well, that. I got married and I had a family, or I had a promotion at my work and I had to work more than I thought, or I, lost my job and I didn't have a source of income, so I had to find a more immediate source of income first. Or any number of things, or I got to fix this in the house, or something just takes their time. Yeah. Or they just let drama happen. And they feed the drama, or they decide that something else is just more important. Maybe they decided that their favorite reality TV show is more important than writing their book, because they have to see who got voted off the island. They got to see who got a rose. Read about it on the internet later. I don't watch those shows. If I really care, I'll just Google it the next day. It's like, okay, who got voted off? Oh, really? Let me read about this.
Right.
The only show that I really take the time to watch is Big Bang Theory. I love that show.
It's a good show. Good show.
Awesome. But yeah, definitely.
We also have Shamika who said, okay, I have some interviews that I was going to put into a book. Are you saying that I shouldn't do that?
No, not at all. If you're, in fact, my book, Conversations with High Achievers, it's coming out in a few months. That is an interview book. I have interviewed over 200 people on my show. And this book will be a compilation of 12 of the best interviews that I've had. So it is possible. In fact, there's a precedent for this. About 15 or 20 years ago, there was a book called Conversations with High Achievers by Mike Littman and Jason Oman. They interviewed Jim Rohn before he died, Mark Victor Hansen, Jack Canfield, Wally Amos of Famous Amos Cookies, Jim McCann from 1-800-Flowers, Debbie Fields, Mrs. Fields Cookies, No, it wasn't her. It was somebody else. But they interviewed 12 people, and that became a book. And that was one of my inspirations, not only for this book, but also an inspiration for me to do a show, because green light, I can interview a lot of really amazing people and talk to them, and in kind of a weird kind of way, get a free hour's worth of coaching from them in front of the world. Yep. Right? Yep. So yeah, it's really great. So no, I absolutely would say do that book. I would say your book will probably do better if the people you're interviewing are people who other people know, or or it's a topic that really resonates with some people. Let's just say that your book is about, Forex, Bitcoin, those are, currencies, those are hot topics right now. Let's just say, for the sake of example, that you are interviewing 12 cryptocurrency experts. I don't care who they are, but if they're experts with a documented track record and it's about a topic I want to know about, I would buy that book.
Yeah.
My angle is that I'm interviewing people that other people know very, very well, because they've been out there for years and years and decades. So that's my angle, is I'm accessing other people's massive audiences to leverage the sales of my book when it comes out. So there's nothing wrong with an interview style book, but think about why you're doing that type of a book. Are you doing it because all of the interviews are on a common theme? Are you doing it because all these people have been on your show? Are you doing it because all these people have a massive audience? And what is your end game? Is your end game to be a bestseller? Is your end game just to sell a few copies for your family and friends? It just those questions all really make a huge difference. So absolutely, you can do an interview style book. Just know why you're doing it. That's all.
Beautiful.
I hope that helps. I hope that helps.
Yes, absolutely. And Shamika, I highly recommend you talk to Brian, because you're in the process of writing, I believe she said, 2 more books right now. And Brian, you're becoming a published author, and who knows how you guys could collaborate, synergize, and help each other. So that'll be super awesome. And I also have another question for you, Brian.
Yep.
How did you win the favor of these bigger name people when you were starting off your show? How did you get them to say yes to be on your show before you had, let's say, the other big people who you used as a testimonial or that kind of thing?
That's a great question. My very first guest was Hal Elrod.
Wow.
Do you know him?
Yes.
Yeah. I met him at a seminar previously, so that was my connection to Hal. And we hit it off and, talked, and really, really great guy. He also referred me the people who built the first version of my website. I've since had it revamped, and they still host some of my domain names. So, still good friends, but Hal Elrod was my first guest. The Miracle Morning wasn't written yet. In fact, I asked him, I said, so I've been hearing about this Miracle Morning book. Tell me about that. And he said, it's not done. I said, well, then I'll have you back when it's done. And so when I had him back the second time, I reminded him, he's like, oh, that's right. You did ask me that. Yeah, cool. And he's now made that a whole series of books. It's, I think, in terms of scope and mission, it's a lot like Chicken Soup for the Soul. I don't know if it'll ever reach, it could. I don't know if that's his aspiration or not, but he has a whole series of books on different, Miracle Morning for, salespeople, Miracle Morning for mothers, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah. So he was my first guest, and I had met him at a seminar. So go to live events and meet people. You never know. Especially, and really the exciting thing is, I met Hal before he became as huge as he is now. And so when you meet people at events like this, it's almost like you're growing up together.
Yes.
You're coming up the ranks together. And so some of my guests during the early years were referred to me by someone who I knew locally. And I got Todd Falcone, who is a multi-level marketer trainer due to that connection. And so then the radio network that I'm a part of, I interviewed other people who were hosting a show. And after a while, people started referring people to me. And in fact, after about a year or a year and a half, I started getting inquiries from PR firms. I had the very first PR firm that approached me said, I represent Bob Berg.
Wow.
Would you like to have him on your show? Yes, please. Yes, please. He was on my dream list. He was on my dream list. And and the other thing about going to conferences too, meet the speakers, because they're very accessible. They'll talk to you. So go to events, meet the speakers, tell them you have a show, tell them you'd like to interview them. They'll usually say yes, and they'll fit it in somehow. It's really rare that someone will say no. Every once in a while, you'll get someone, for example, like a Darren Hardy, who has a team in front of him, which is fine, but they want to know, how big is your audience? Who is your audience? How many downloads do you get? Who else have you had on your show? They ask you tons of questions. There will be other people who are very well known who will say, go to our website, click on the media link, and apply to have him on your show. Okay, that's how I got Jack Canfield. That's how I got Darren Hardy. But then once you get a few big names, you can start saying, I've had him, I've had her, I've had her, I've had him on my show. And they all know each other. And so it becomes a lot easier. Get testimonials from those people and put them on your website. I am absolutely convinced that the deal sealer for me to getting Darren Hardy on my show was his team looked at my website, looked at the testimonials, saw Jack Canfield's testimonial, James Malinchak, Dr. John DeMartini, Jeffrey Gittimer, just all these amazing people. It's like, I know who all of these people are. Okay, I'm in.
Yes.
Boom. Social proof is so huge.
Yes.
Social proof is really, really huge.
Wow.
So find the leading people in your industry, whatever that industry is. Get people who are well known. Also get people who have a great audience, and those two are not necessarily mutually exclusive. My first year, I had someone, I don't know if you've heard of Visalis, the multi-level marketing company, the protein shakes.
Yes.
I had someone on my show who was very, very high up, was a $1 million earner in that organization. She's doing something different now. But when you have somebody who has a huge following in MLM and they say jump, they all ask how high. If they say, I'm going to be interviewed on this show, you need to listen, they're all like, when? Where is it? Where is it? Yeah, I got a huge spike in listenership that week. And I think it put me on the map as far as iTunes was concerned. And this was probably 2 or 3 months into my show. So that helped a lot. So 2 things, get people who other people know and get people with a huge audience. And just know that the two, there's not necessarily an intersection between those two. There are a lot of people with a huge audience that no one knows and has never heard of. And some of the people who have huge audiences may promote your episode or they may not. Some of the people who are very well known may promote your episode or they may not, because if they're really well known and have a huge thriving business where they're doing multi-million dollars of business a year, they're already promoting all their own stuff. They may not promote yours, but they certainly want to promote their thing on your show. And that's the other thing too. I let people promote their stuff on my show. In fact, I almost insist that you have something to promote. It's evidence of your journey. It's a success-oriented show. Please say that you've written a book or that you have an email list or a free thing to give away. That works really well, by the way. I had Rich German on my show, and he talked about monetizing your podcast. And right now his big thing is helping people make a lot of money in their businesses through joint ventures. But he has a book called Monetize Your Passion, and he gave it away as a free giveaway. And on that page, there was also an option to give to his charity or his foundation, where he helps homeless kids in San Diego get off the street. And so please, here's your book for free. If you would like to give, if you feel inclined to give, please do that. And I asked his executive assistant the following week, was there a spike in downloads? And she says there was a spike in downloads and there was a spike in donations this week. So thank you. I'm like, good.
Wow.
So that helps me to know that the show made a difference.
Wow. Yes. Dude, Brian, you're rocking it, man. I love this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for all the show contribution advice. It's really meaningful to me because I'm still in the very early stages of this show, as you can tell.
Yeah, no, you're doing great.
Thank you, man. Thank you. So last minute, let's start wrapping it up. Or any other points that you wanted to hit on ghostwriting, on people getting that next masterpiece out? Let's hear it, man.
If you have created content, whether it's a blog, whether it's videos, whether it's articles that you've written, or whether it's someone who's interviewed you, think about different ways that you can repurpose that content. People learn differently. Some people like to learn by reading. Other people like to learn by listening. Other people like to learn by watching. Make sure your content is accessible in as many different ways as possible. If I liked your video, I might be inclined to watch it or to read it. Especially if you've produced a lot of content that I'm just not going to have time to watch. I mean, if you've got 200 videos on YouTube, God bless you, but I'm not going to watch all of them. I don't care. I mean, you may be really good. I'm just not going to have time. I'm just not.
Right.
But if you can compile a best of and put it in a book, I'll read your book.
Yeah. Wow. So people already have their genius that's that they've compiled, and it's time to do something with that genius. Put it together, put it to work, put it into a different medium. I think that's another message, that there's people out there who will enjoy different mediums. Like I know for this show, we do it on Facebook Live, and to be able to transcribe, let's say, each of these interviews into a blog post, that'd be awesome. To put it onto a podcast, that'd be awesome. To put it into a book, the best of, that would be awesome, and it would hit all these different modalities.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So think about how many different ways can you repurpose the same content. Let's just say, for example, that you were interviewed or you were featured in Entrepreneur Magazine or you were seen on television. Have you seen those as seen on TV stickers? Mm-hmm. Repurpose that forever. Wow. Put that in all of your marketing.
Wow.
Use what you've done in as many different ways as you can. You will get so much mileage out of it.
Wow, man. Wow. Awesome. Brian, how can people take the next step with you? What is this, like you ghostwrite for people. Tell people about that process and how they can do that with you.
Okay. If they want to reach out to me to schedule a conversation, you can email me, Brian, that's Brian, Brian at briankwright.com. That's Brian, the letter K, Wright. Okay. Brian at briankwright.com. You can also find me on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter at Mr. Brian K. Wright. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm everywhere. I'm not on Instagram yet. I should be, but I'm not.
I'm everywhere. I love that statement.
Yeah. It's all about being omnipresent.
Yes.
It's like you are everywhere. You must be the deal. You must be the real deal. So if you want to reach out to me via email, or you can friend me on Facebook, I'd be very glad to make that connection with you there as well. And if you are serious about wanting to write a book, and you qualify to work with me, I would be very glad to have that conversation with you and see what I can do to help you.
Awesome. Beautiful. And then you also have a newsletter opt-in. What can people expect when they do that?
Okay. I haven't done a lot with that yet, but I do plan on doing more with it. You can go to my website, briankwright.com, and there is a link called newsletter, and you can opt on to my list. And the freebie that you get is 7 of my earliest shows during the first year. I have transcripts for. One of them is the first Hal Elrod interview.
Wow.
Another one is the Todd Falcone interview. So some good people you may have heard of, and maybe people that you haven't heard of, who are still absolutely amazing in their own rights. So you get 7 free interview transcripts from my show just for giving me your name and your email. And I would be very happy to make that connection with you there. And I will start becoming more active with that to let people know more about specific episodes that I have coming up on my show, or when I have a book available, or just to provide content that's valuable. It's not going to be sell, sell, sell. I'm on some lists where every single time they email me, they're trying to sell me something. Oh, God bless America. Stop it. But here's the thing. Value, 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 then sell. So maybe 1 out of every 3 or 1 out of every 4. Or if you're absolutely discreet about it, at the end of your email, and by the way, I offer this program. Great. That's not a problem. It's not intrusive. Right. But if all of your emails and all of your communications with someone looks like a giant commercial, door's over there. I'm done.
Yeah.
Just don't. We are inundated with so many marketing messages. People are getting really wise as to discovering really early which kind of message you have. Be sincere. Be yourself. Offer something of value. Give things away for free. Let someone experience you first before you ask them to pay you.
Wow. Beautiful, man. And then where can people find you moving forward? I know you mentioned that you got a book being officially published, and then another one that's self-published. What else you got on the horizon?
My book, Nuggets for Living, will come out in a couple of months. It's not anywhere yet. And Conversations with High Achievers, I should have some copies of that available by the end of the summer, but the official release is going to be next January for the ebook, and next April for the physical copies. There's going to be a bookstore launch. Awesome. So yeah, I'm going to be in bookstores. This is going to be really exciting just to see where this journey takes me. So exciting.
Do you know what's after that? Like ultimately where you want to be in the next couple of years?
I want the show to be my radio show, Success Profiles Radio, to be considered one of the leading shows on iTunes. I think that would be really great. I would like to have several more books by then. I would like to be really busy helping clients. I would like to have had a couple of live events by then. I think having a live event would be a really interesting challenge and a really great way of providing great value and introducing people to my wonderful friends who are amazing and have tons of value to provide too. And there's a real synergy when you have several people speaking at your event. You get introduced to an audience that you've not seen before. I mean, if I have, let's just say I have someone like a Jack Canfield. He has a huge audience. I don't know who a lot of them are. Maybe a lot of them maybe don't know who I am yet, but they will. So it's just a great way, working with other people, JVing, hosting a live event, getting them to speak at your event. It's a great way to create synergy between yourself and other people who have audiences that may overlap but may not completely intersect.
Wow. Beautiful. Well, Brian, dude, thank you for coming on today. You are a superstar. I love you, bro. And let's plan when you're releasing the next book, the 21 principles and nuggets and all that good stuff. Let's get you back on the show, man.
Yeah. Now, if someone does want to look at some content that I have already created on Amazon, I do have a book called Success Profiles, Mental Toughness, and Sales.
Ooh.
It's this. And I interviewed 3 people on the topics of mental toughness and sales. One of them is Jeffrey Gitomer. One of them is Eric Lofholm, and the other is Scott Lopez. You can find this on Amazon, the e-version. It's $7.99. It's a great read. I mean, who wouldn't want to spend $8 on a book, right? I mean, you're going to get way more than $8 worth of ideas in this. It's a short read. So this is on Amazon. If someone wants to pick this up and download it to their Kindle or their e-reader, it's there. It's on Amazon. I do believe my student leadership book, I think, is also on Amazon too. Yeah. But you can also order either of those on my website, briankWright.com. If you feel inclined to do that, you can order either the e-version or the physical version, and I can ship it out to you.
Awesome, man. Anything else?
You're awesome and amazing. Keep rocking and rolling and doing your thing, my brother. You are fantastic.
Thank you, man. Keep shining. Have the best week ever, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Take care. Thank you so much, Chris.
Take care, man.
Uh-huh.